Hey there, it's Tom Ryan, founder and CEO of ICR. Before we get into the next episode, I wanted to ask that you subscribe to the show. It'll help us get even more unique and interesting guests on the podcast and in turn continue to educate management teams and the growing ecosystem that creates value for fast-growing private and public companies. And while you're at it, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating. Very much appreciated.
So I think our style is really working for people are getting more dressed up, looking for more fashion, but they don't want to abandon the comfort.
Alex and Mike Faherty built a clothing brand inspired by their origins as surfer kids of the Jersey Shore and their later years living in Manhattan. And even as the brand has grown, they've always tried to stay true to that original vision and the values that made them a beloved brand for so many.
I have this mentality of the bigger we get, the smaller we have to feel.
My name is Tom Ryan, and this is Welcome to the Arena, the ICR podcast. Each week, I sit down with today's business leaders to give you an inside scoop on some of America's most prosperous public companies, their origins, their challenges, and the keys to their success. My guest today is Alex Faherty. He's the co-founder and CEO of Faherty, a family-owned and run lifestyle apparel brand. Since its founding in 2013, he and his twin brother have built a 9-figure omnichannel business with nearly 80 stores, a large e-commerce presence, and a robust wholesale business with partners like Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, and numerous specialty stores across the country. It's an exciting brand with a great story. Let's enter the arena with Alex Faherty. So I'm going to make you tell the story again from the beginning. You co-founded Faherty in 2013. What did you guys see in the marketplace where you said to yourselves, man, we're going for this, we're going to do it?
So the Faherty brand came to life in my twin brother Mike's college essay when he was 18. He wrote his college essay about starting a clothing brand that he called Coast to Curb. We grew up on the Jersey Shore, a town called Spring Lake.
Yep.
And then when we were teenagers, my parents told us one day, you're moving to New York City. So we went from growing up as surfer dudes on the Jersey Shore to all of a sudden living on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And that was quite a change.
Yep.
And so all of a sudden, we're these surfer kids living in New York City. And my brother specifically, he always loved clothes. Even when we were little kids, he loved going back to school shopping. Always had to pick out the right pair of Nikes. Just had that thing that just people have.
Yeah.
And so him and my dad bonded over clothes. My dad liked clothes a lot. So I think when we moved to New York, Mike started shopping at Polo and Bloomingdale's. And I think it was I can't find a brand that I want, because I want a brand that I like the quality of Polo and Bloomingdale's and the fabrics, but the style is not necessarily my style that I want. So that's what he wrote his college essay. He called the brand Coast to Curb in the college essay. And ever since he wrote that college essay, him and I said, we're going to have a clothing company one day.
Were you on board with that? Were you just observing from the side, or were you whoa, we could do something with this someday?
Well, he always kind of told me what to wear.
Yeah.
I had no idea what to wear. I no fashion sense as a kid.
Yeah.
He had fashion sense. So he was always my guy.
Yeah, dude, clean yourself up, right?
What should I wear? He's why the fuck are you wearing those maroon sweatpants?
Yeah.
And so when he said we're going to write the clothing brand, I think as a twin, we're identical twins, we spent a lot of time together as kids and have a great relationship. The idea of doing a company together is kind of the dream.
So you had that in the back of your mind maybe when you were even little kids, but when you kind of got to that point, when you guys were 18 or 19, was it kind of all right, I'm going into private equity, I'm going to learn this, you go here, you learn that, and we're going to circle back in 5 years?
It was pretty much that.
That's insane.
I don't remember every single detail, but when I met my wife, I met my wife actually freshman year in college, and she still says when we first started talking that I told her I was going to start a clothing company with my twin brother. Really? This is when I'm a freshman in college.
Dude, I love it.
And probably, as I was asking more people about wanting to start a clothing brand while I was in college, I remember the advice I got the most was these companies take a lot of money, so make sure you make money with whatever job you do before you start this. So it was 2005, investment banking was paying well. And so I got a job in investment banking, and Mike actually studied fashion as an undergrad.
Really?
He played basketball in college, and he could only find a few schools where he could play basketball and also study fashion. And he ended up at a school in St. Louis called Washington University in St. Louis, which has a really good Division III basketball program. So he studied fashion there. And then his dream was always to work at Ralph Lauren, and he got a job at Ralph Lauren right after college.
The decade you spent in banking and private equity, I always tell kids coming out of school that's such an insane skill set to get, because you can do anything with it. You can buy a company, you can start a company. What were the biggest lessons that really helped you from that experience that helped you kind of launch this thing? Because you kind of went into it probably with, hey, look, we want to create something special, but we also want like a value creation mindset. Like, what did you take from your banking and private equity days?
Yeah. Especially now that I've been running the business, so I have the experience of running the business. So there's people who get into industry and start doing, marketing or sales or manufacturing. And then there's people who sort of go into, consulting or banking.
Yeah.
And when you're in banking and private equity, you don't really do anything. You don't make anything.
Right.
You basically just spend your time strategizing about how a company can become better or why you'd want to buy a company or
talking about money all the time.
So it's a different headspace. So I think when I got into the world from what I learned from banking private equity and I got to Faherty was actually taking this idea of this brand that Mike and I talked about as kids and how do you make it successful? How do you build this strategic plan?
Yeah.
That is thinking about the financials, the strategy, the channels, the distribution, the marketing, the customers, which to be 29 years old and sort of have 8 years of sort of doing that in different ways, I think was extremely helpful for us to do. And actually, honestly, the business model that we built in 2013 is the same business model we have in 2025. I mean, obviously over years it's moved and morphed, but it's still we're an omnichannel business. We've been an omnichannel business since the beginning. We're diversified in lots of ways. Financial profile of the business is as we kind of mapped it out.
Yep.
I spent years studying the industry when I was at Cerberus. In my downtime, every 10K I could study.
Yeah.
All the research reports. So all of a sudden, I'm starting a business, having no experience in running an apparel business, but at least I had all these.
I feel like you had a leg up, though. There's so many talented fashion people, and it's such a complex business, and it has to be perfect all the time. And I always look at some designers or fashion people I want to start my own thing. And I'm like, God, the deck seems so stacked against you if you don't have that financial piece to it, right?
Yeah, it's a very, very complicated business, lots of moving parts. If you can get to relevance and you can get to some sort of scale, it's a pretty amazing accomplishment.
Yeah. Well, listen, you guys are kind of, you're there, as far as I know. I'm not an expert in the industry, but to me, the brand is everywhere. All the people I know have it. How do you describe the brand to people today?
The way I tend to simply describe it to someone is I love just telling the story.
Yeah.
Because I think, that's the authenticity that I have is this is just what Mike and I, this is a brand we wanted.
Yeah.
Grew up surfer kids, moved to New York City, felt like there was a need for a brand that merged our love of Patagonia, Polo, surf brands, outdoor brands into this one really cool, beautiful brand that had sustainability in it, had beautiful fabrics in it, had cool style in it. It's just kind of our vibe.
Yeah.
And it's one of our advantages that we have is there's two guys who live and breathe what we're doing.
Yeah.
We design the clothes for ourselves for the most part and our friends. And it's, it's hard to come by in the world is to actually find that sort of these guys have found exactly what they love to do. They're making the things that they actually want to make. It's almost like a chef with his restaurant.
Yeah. And family owned.
Family owned. My wife and my mom were in it when we started it and helped us build the business. And it's been fucking crazy.
Yeah.
The last 13 years and the stuff we've gone through. And my private equity job was so much easier.
Yeah. Well, you're just growing a business on a spreadsheet's easy.
So it was amazing. I mean, I had to work a lot of hours and, you have to deal with some interesting personalities, but this has been the challenge of my life and also the most rewarding thing I ever do. And now I'm 42 and my vision is, can I keep doing this for the rest of my life? Because I get to do all the things I want to do.
Yeah, it's so cool. When you guys started, who did you envision as your customer and who is your customer today?
I think it started with the customer was us when we were 29 and 30. That was the customer. I think today, now that the business has more scale and the way we've sort of formed the brand is it really is, we actually now think about it as our family.
Yeah.
So I've got nephews that are in college. I've got a father-in-law that's 80. So we think about it within the context of building this kind of American brand, keeping true to our style and our vibe, but not being too niche-y, not trying to just one customer, being democratic in how we think about customers. So you'll see that in what the 18-year-old kids are buying from Faherty is different than what the 50-year-old guys are buying from Faherty. Yeah. But we try and make it all make sense through the colors, the washing of the fabric, the way the fabric feels. They can kind of fit anyone's lifestyle, because the vibe of the brand is it should be able to fit anyone. It's people who are relaxed.
Yeah.
They're casual, but they want to wear something that's really nice. They don't want to be too stuffy. And there's a lot of golf stuff out there. There's a lot of activewear stuff out there. There's stuff that's like very luxury. And so there's a sweet spot in the middle there that we try and play in.
So when you look at the products, classic timeless pieces, but this is a really good segue, I think, into the innovation that you guys have done, particularly with like the fabrics and all of that stuff. How do you think about like innovation in terms of like craftsmanship and sourcing and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so that for people who don't know the industry that well, the way fabric is pretty much for men specifically, fabric is the most important thing. How it feels, how it fits around them, how it forms around them. And so my brother Mike worked at a brand at Ralph Lauren called RRL, which is their like high-end Western vintage brand. And what that brand does is it tries to take products that were from the 1920s and 30s and make them new. So what my brother had to learn in that whole process was actually creating all of the garments and fabric from like basically scratch. And most brands will buy fabric from fabric mills. Mike actually develops all of his own fabric from scratch. Yeah. So the yarn, the way the yarns blend, the way the washes are. So there's like going back to the chef thing, he picks all the ingredients and sort of makes the dishes, which is super unique in the industry. Most brands would just buy from most brands people will buy, just buy fabric from
I
the
read
mill.
Something where you guys were like in Peru on a 9-hour car ride to see the farms and shit.
So
that's so cool.
So we go, he goes all over the world to find the best stuff.
Yeah.
Really just find the best stuff. And I think what we've tried to bring is like, as technical innovation has hit the industry, which is like, activewear has done it in a way. Is like, how do we take some of those tenets that people are loving about activewear, which is like movement and stretch and like not stiff, and but make it in clothes that don't look that way. And that's kind of been our little like secret sauce in menswear over the last bunch of years, is like product that feels as comfortable as anything you could buy.
Yep.
But it looks like it's worn and it's casual and it doesn't feel like you're leaving the gym.
Yeah, agree. It's great. Talk about, obviously 80 stores, strong e-commerce, wholesale partnerships like Nordstrom and Bloomingdale's that I mentioned. A lot of brands are abandoning wholesale for direct-to-consumer, but you guys are embracing it. Why are you doing that?
When we started the brand, going back to studying, when I was in private equity, studying it and learning the industry, I, from the beginning, said this brand is going to be built on wholesale because it's how you get credibility. You're in a store where there's other brands, people know those brands, and how are you a new brand anyone fucking learns about you?
Yeah.
Unless you walk into a store.
Yeah. So
for the first couple of years of the business, we were 70% wholesale. It was most of our business. That's really what built the brand.
Yeah.
Because we didn't raise a ton of money to start. We weren't VC backed. So we didn't have all this money to spend on direct marketing.
Yeah.
And so wholesale sort of markets itself. The stores have their own customers. So I always liked that about it. So most brands started all e-com and D2C and then have to build in wholesale. We actually built in wholesale first. So we have sort of a competitive advantage. And the wholesale business is slightly different. The way you run it, the timeline, the calendars, the relationships. In those early days, I built the relationships myself. I was the salesman. I was traveling to all these stores with all these department stores. And so fast forward 11, 12 years from when we first kicked off the wholesale business, it's just core to our business. And it used to be 70, now it's 30% of the business. So it's smaller, but it's still a great way to get in front of customers. And people shop in lots of places.
Yeah.
Like I own an e-commerce business that has an e-commerce business. I never shop online.
Yeah, I don't either.
Ever for clothes.
Yeah. It just doesn't seem like it would work.
And I think this idea that people are going to just shop online for clothes, I think at our price point, at our quality level, stores where, and you look at the luxury guys, like Cucinelli's e-commerce business is like 2% of its overall business.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's like much higher stratosphere of pricing, but there's a relativity to our price point and how people want to experience it in person.
Yeah. How about retail? What's the approach to physical stores?
Our number one most favorite type of stores are places that are in resort or vacation destinations that we think our customer goes to, because our brand has very much clothes you want to wear on vacation vibe. Yeah. And I love visiting these places. So part of my job is visiting these places.
Yeah.
So you name it. If it's a ski town, a beach town, and there's enough traffic in that town, I will 100% look at that deal.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, we've really had some success in streets, in cities, in suburbs. not so much malls. We only have a couple mall, like sort of real mall stores, because I think we like the idea of being, as a new brand, like being where the traffic is without a lot of every brand competition. Streets like Greenwich Avenue have been huge for us.
Yeah.
We just opened up in Westport. That's been huge. Places in Massachusetts, Wellesley, Mass has been a great store for us. Some of these like higher, affluent suburbs have been really good stores
Like
for us.
Richards and Mitchell's.
They're great stores for
Bob
us.
Mitchell's a good buddy of mine.
Yeah,
so.
they're amazing. They've
Yeah.
been one of our first customers and super helpful to us building the brand. Because our price point's not for everyone.
Yep.
And so we've been trying to be like, where is the customer that likes quality, vibes with the brand? And obviously e-commerce data helps, but honestly, I always go and visit every site.
Yep.
And the number one thing is I look at who's walking around.
Yeah.
Like there's just a general vibe of people and like how they look, how they act. Like
at this point,
you just kind of know.
Yeah.
And then this year we're going to start exploring opening in some of these bigger malls. Kind of like at 80 some stores, it's kind of time to test that a little bit.
Yeah.
So some of these bigger indoor malls where the traffic is insane.
Yeah.
Because we've had some success in Short Hills Mall, which is a big mall. So we're doing some more of those, which will be a good test for the brand to see how it performs in some of these bigger profile indoor centers.
Is there like a number of stores that you think you can hit, or is it just kind of like, hey, listen?
I mean, I don't really have like a number.
It's more of a feel.
It's more of a feel. Like we're getting stuff shown at us all the time, and we're still staying disciplined with decisions that we make.
Yeah.
We're starting to expand internationally. So that makes the equation slightly easier. So like there's this really great beach town in France called Biarritz.
Yeah, I know.
So we're opening up a store there because if you've gone there, you're like, well, if Faherty works in these beach towns in America, it should work in Biarritz.
Yeah.
We'll see.
But I mean, that's a calculated test.
And when you walk around and see people in Biarritz, you're like, Faherty should work here.
Yeah.
We'll see if it does. But that's obviously when you get outside the U.S., it's almost limitless if you succeed in each of these countries of where the brand can go. But we'll see.
One of the advantages that Faherty has, and Alex pointed to this, it's the brand's authenticity. But as they expand with more stores and new locations around the world, I wanted his take on how they preserve that authenticity and maintain the image that has brought them so much success to this point.
That's the trick. I think that's what we're going through right now and trying to, when you build a global brand, some of the ways you do things and show up have to kind of evolve. Mike is my business partner. He's our creative director. There's things he sees and the way he sees the brand that sometimes are slightly different than the way I see the brand, and we have to trust each other. Yeah. And as long as we trust each other, and sometimes we'll move in one direction and we got to move back in another direction, but you're constantly with a brand you're constantly sort of like, it's like a baby.
Yeah.
Like you're constantly parenting it. Like it gets a little bit this way, like my daughter's starting to talk back to me. I'm like, honey, so you gotta like, and then want to give her a little bit more freedom. So it really is we're raising this baby. The baby's 13 years old.
13's a tough age.
It's a tough age. It is for us, there's a lot more people. There's a lot more scale.
Yeah. When you get to a point where you don't know everybody's name at the company, that's when you're kind of like, whoa, we got to figure this out.
So, we have 650 people that work in our retail division. I don't know.
Right.
I think they're all great, and I get great feedback.
The culture piece is critical as it gets bigger.
It's critical. And I think that's the thing we've invested in the most over the last couple of years, and I think that's been helpful. And then now it's really like, how do we become an international brand? How does it show up? It's an amazing thing to try and like work through every day. But the good thing is it's like, this is all I do.
Yeah.
This is all Mike does.
Yeah,
this
you
is
think
what we
about
think
it 24/7.
I'm constantly watching everything under the sun.
You're annoying.
No, it's so annoying. My wife and I's relationship is just basically talking about the brand most of the time. But it's what we signed up for,
but it's
great. We love it.
How about resale and sustainability? I know, very important to consumers. And then I know you're a certified B Corporation, 1% for the planet. Maybe talk about those things.
Yep. So when we first started the brand, the first product we ever made was a bathing suit that was made out of a really cool, innovative, sustainable material made out of recycled plastic water bottles, kind of right when that innovation was happening. Because we grew up with Patagonia as our favorite brand.
Yeah.
So when you're a kid that grows up with Patagonia as your favorite brand, it's just inside of you. So since we started the brand, we've always tried to use more sustainable materials. So that's embedded into our costs and our supply chain already. And so today we're about 80% of our materials would be called better, more sustainable materials, which puts us at the top tier of the industry.
Yep.
And so we had been talking about becoming a B Corp. And so we went through that extensive process of becoming a B Corp, which is based on your sustainability, your ethics, the way you treat people, the way you pay people. That's an audit times 10. And so we got approved as a B Corp like a year and a half ago, which is more of just a testament to the team and the things that we're doing. And so when I think about the future of Faherty, like I want us to be a leader in how we're using materials that are the best materials we can. And because Mike creates so many of these fabrics from scratch, we can do that. Because I want to make sure this brand makes the best impact it can. Because it's like, this is what I want as a brand. And fortunately, we've built the cost structure and the cost structure of the product and the brand to like have all this integrated. What happens for these bigger brands is like, to all of a sudden, I'm going to invest and make my cost of goods 20% higher to become more sustainable. Unless the consumer is saying, I want it, I need it, they're not going to do it. And so you've sort of seen a lot of brands kind of pull back from it. And as they're pulling back, we are leaning in more and more to it.
Customers aside, I think, employees want to be proud of where we call them team members at ICR, because I hate that word employee, but it's like, they want to be proud of where they work. And I think that's like, it gives you a little like swagger, you know what I'm saying? Like they're fired up about it too, I would imagine.
Yeah, totally. It's important for people who work at Faherty. I think it's important for the legacy of the brand. And I want to make sure that we're, as much as we can be, a brand that a new brand, people that are starting brands and look like Faherty can do this and they can do it at scale.
How about like technology and AI, not the technicals and the fabric and stuff, but just like technology into the business? Like, I don't know anything about that, but I know, you need to do it.
I think the most amazing thing that's going to come out of it is, for a brand like ours, is if I see us becoming, $1 billion brand one day, the ability to do that now without being like, oh my God, I'm going to have to hire so many people. I'm going to have to figure so much out. Now it's like,
that's a whole different level to manage.
And now it's like, we got this core group of people that are amazing. And now we've got this weapon of tech, this new kind of that we can use to really make the scale happen super efficiently. That's where it's like, you don't need armies of merchants and planners and tech teams anymore. Like, it's super tight. And I think that's super exciting to me, that takes over the overwhelming thing of like, how hard it could be to scale a company. Like, now technology is helping us do that in a much bigger way. So we're using it everywhere. And because we're a modern brand, our tech stack is Shopify, NetSuite. It's relatively simple to integrate everything and anything. Nothing's home built. Everything's just like the best of the newest technology.
Like changes so fast. You can't build anything internally, right?
So, I mean, I think we have some of the best, most efficient tech in the industry. We have a tech team of 3. Because all the software, we rent a lot of software, but the software we rent is constantly getting better and better and better, and someone else is doing that for us.
You just need people thinking about that
strategy
every second.
Exactly.
Right? So how about the product roadmap? What are you most excited about? What can you talk about?
So I think women's has been a big focus of ours going forward. So it's about 30% of our business now, and we're hoping to get that to 40 to 50% over the next 5 years. So that's a cool challenge for us.
That would be incredible.
Yeah, that's a cool challenge for us. We have a lot of people loving what we're doing, and sort of building that team out in a much bigger way. In men's, I think we've seen a lot of success recently as we've kind of, the brand's got a little bit more dressed up in some specific categories. So some casual tailoring, but still kind of the Faherty vibe, has been a big opportunity for us. You'll probably see more of that from us, a little bit more of like, as we move, keep the kind of casual side, but you'll see a little bit more of an elevated piece to the brand that our customers been asking for.
Cool. We're sitting here in January of 26. I always think that companies can only do so many things in 1 year. What are the 1 or 2 or 3 things that you guys are really focused on going into 26?
Number 1 is just execution and process. So as I said, still relatively small company, a lot of aspirations. How do you set yourself up to go from being a 250 million brand to a $1 billion brand? So I think getting the right people in the processes, we spent a lot of time on that. The second thing is, on the product side, specifically in women's, is we're really trying to build out this business. So that's a little bit of a new muscle for us, and a way of being, trying to compete with these brands. Like, Urban does such an amazing job of like newness, and like they got an army of people. So how do we compete with these brands that have been doing it for a long time?
Is Mike's Power Alley also in women's? Is he building a team for that?
We're building a team for it. Yeah.
Cool.
So we've hired some really, really great people to help us do that. And that's a piece of it. And then the third thing is this international expansion that we're doing. So I'm actually flying from here to Italy for a big trade show, because I feel like we might be small to be starting to go international, but we're getting some really good initial feedback and some the demand pull has been pretty good.
Well, you have to be thinking 3 to 5 years ahead versus everyone else, right? In the
Yeah, because if you look at the luxury brands, they're all like 40% North America, and then the rest is international. So I think that's an interesting, if we can kind of keep that mindset, it also I think will help us build the brand with, to your point, a little bit more like worldly thinking. I think sometimes American brands can get a very, very Americanized.
Yeah.
Which tends to be like a little bit more mass market, a little bit less cool. Yep. And so if we can kind of take the international lens, which tends to kind of be a little bit more of a curated view of brands and how you create brands, it might be an advantage for us.
Yeah, you don't want to be less cool. That's not going to work for you, man.
Yeah.
How about the competitive landscape? We talked about the complexity of the business, and just even, let's say you didn't have that many competitors, it would be super complex to run anyway. But like, how do you see the competitive landscape, just generally speaking, kind of across your category and apparel in general?
I mean, in apparel, almost everyone's your competitor.
Yeah.
It's so hard to have differentiation because, someone can go to a department store,
anywhere.
They can go to a mall, they can go to TJ Maxx, they can go anywhere and buy clothes. And so I think what we're seeing in the competitor space is in women, the market's just ginormous. There's so many brands. You just got to find your thing. You got to find your thing. You got to be consistent. You got to have cool stuff. You got to have great fit. And I think in men's, it's a little bit easier to build a brand that like men are like, oh, I know that brand and it's a great brand because there's just less competition. And so in men's, I think what we're seeing, which is helping us, is this active wear trend is sort of slowly subsiding. So I think you had post-COVID guys just sort of wearing like stretchy, shiny clothes for everything.
Yep.
And I think it's a little bit going back to some like heritage style. You're seeing it in the way guys whether wearing blazers and dressing up. It's like they're dressing up more. We're seeing it in California. Usually California got so casual. We're seeing guys dress up more in California for sure.
Mountain towns too.
Mountain towns. So I think our style is really working for like people are getting more dressed up, looking for more fashion, but they don't want to like abandon the comfort and like the ease of what they were wearing. And so we've become like this nice bridge for people stylistically as we move to this like new world of dressing.
Yeah. How about for people listening today, a gigantic audience, I might add, maybe 2 or 3 takeaways on Faherty and kind of like your vision for the next 5 to 10 years. What are you hoping for the brand, and how are you hoping to continue to connect with people all over the world?
I think for us, I just want people to love what we're doing.
Yep.
Like we put so much energy into this. So I want people to love the clothes that we're making, love the experiences that they have with the brand. So I'm like super focused on the customer experience of the brand. Because when you get too big and you get big, you just lose that.
Yeah.
And so I have this mentality of like, the bigger we get, the smaller we have to feel.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like I still interview every single store manager that we hire.
Yeah.
Every single employee that we hire. I don't know if it's a great use of my time, but I feel like it's a great use of my time.
You feel like you have to do it.
I want to do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's something I hope you see in Faherty is like this ability of a brand that you will hopefully consistently feel like you get a great experience with it. I think the second thing is you're just continuing to see us show up in cool, interesting ways as we elevate the brand and become just a better version of ourselves over time. And whether that's some interesting collaborations we have down the pipeline, the way our store design is going to evolve, the way our product will evolve. I think both Mike and I have this mentality, like we just got to get better every day and keep moving and evolving and, we'll keep our core, but what's next, what's new. So I think it's up to us as like the creative visionaries of the brand to keep our customer excited about coming back.
That was Alex Faherty, co-founder and CEO of Faherty. Along with his wife, Carrie, and his brother, Mike, they are building a monster lifestyle brand with nearly 80 stores, an e-commerce presence, and a robust wholesale business. And even their mom's involved, which is super cool. It's a family-owned business, which means they care immensely about the quality of the product, their customers, and they can take a measured approach to growth so that the brand never gets compromised by financial goals. I would encourage everybody to go check out the website, fahertybrand.com, and I'm excited to get Alex back on the show for an update on their new product offerings and their international expansion. I'm Tom Ryan. We'll see you next time back in the arena.
References to specific stocks are not intended to be recommendations for specific trading behavior. Comments presented on this podcast are intended for informational and educational purposes only, and do not represent opinions or recommendations on whether to buy, sell, or hold shares of a particular stock. All investors are advised to conduct their own independent research into individual stocks before making a trading decision. In addition, investors are advised that past stock performance is no guarantee of future price performance.